Hello and welcome to Center Stage, a series brought to you by The Workbook, spotlighting the most innovative people and technologies shaping the future of film and television. I'm your host, Trevor Fox. Today, I have the pleasure of welcoming two of Canada's most accomplished and forward-thinking producers. First, a man whose career reads like a masterclass in reinvention. From founding Vortex Comics, one of Canada's most influential alternative comic publishers in the 1980s, to producing over 80 film and television projects, including the TIFF Gala premiere of Forsaken, starring Kiefer and Donald Sutherland, and the beloved cult horror franchise Wolf Cop. He's a producer, a visionary, and quite frankly, a legend of Canadian independent film, Bill Marks. Alongside him, a Chicago-born producer and writer whose career spans talent representation, studio development, and independent production across Los Angeles and Toronto, with credits touching Netflix, HBO, Fox, and Apple, and a producing filmography that continues to grow with real intention and purpose. Tony Polito. What is it that specifically you look for in something that you'd like to develop?
Tony?
Can I answer this one? Yeah, I can talk all day, Trevor, about this.
Together, Bill and Tony are the driving force behind Buzzflik, a groundbreaking new initiative bringing 4 student-driven feature films to life in Windsor, Ontario, pairing the next generation of filmmakers with seasoned industry professionals for real, paid, on-set experience. Welcome to Center Stage. Let's get into it. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me today.
It's great to be here. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Bill, you built Vortex Comics from scratch back in the 80s. You had a stint as a race car driver, then became a film producer with over 80 credits to your name. That's incredibly impressive right off the bat. Every chapter of your career seems to start with you spotting something that others hadn't seen yet. What did you see in this moment in teenagers, in storytelling, and in the industry that told you that Buzzflik was the right move right now?
Yeah. Well, thank you for the accolades. Usually those are reserved for your retirement speech, but I have no plans of retiring anytime soon because I have all these amazing kids to work with. There's a lot of things that led me to decide to move the whole Buzzflik idea forward. First and foremost, every year here at Vortex, which is a very successful company, makes a lot of movies every year, distributes probably about 50 third-party movies every year as well. We have a couple of interns come into the office, and I look at these kids, and they are awesome. They're smart, they're hardworking, they're focused, and I think to myself, these guys are great. They are going to have a fabulous future in this industry. But I was seeing time and time again that they were running into brick walls. There was nowhere for them to go when they graduated, other than to start at the bottom in a very hierarchical business, work as a PA if you're one of the lucky ones, and get part-time work and live with your parents. And it just all seemed like there must be something better out there.
Right.
And then I came up with this idea, and I've encapsulated it for the kids. I said, look, you guys can do every job on a film already. You're digital native. You've been growing up making movies on your phone since you were 2. They've all gone through training at good polytechnic or university programs. Mm-hmm. The only thing that we can do, Tony and I, that they can't do is raise millions of dollars to go out and make movies with. That's really hard. And, I've been at this, I tell this speech to the point where everyone's bored of hearing it, but I had my first paying job in film in 1978.
Wow, what was that job?
I was the props master on a horror film called Sinophrenic. I got the job because I had a car and nobody else did. So
nice leg up on the competition with the vehicle.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Having a driver's license turned out to be a good thing, and owning a car turned out to be a very good thing. I delivered a lot of newspapers to buy that car with, by the way. Right. But so the idea was, it's like, well, we have all this infrastructure and all this experience. Why not put it to work for these young people? Mm-hmm. And then it has kind of evolved, right? It didn't start with what it is now. It started with, maybe I can find summer jobs for 10 kids or 20 kids. Maybe we can have everybody on one of our film crews have an apprentice with them. And all of his ideas were valid, but then it just grew. And it was like, no, this is even better than that. Let's have the kids do everything. So I'm very fortunate. I produced a very large film this year with David Bezmozgas called The Betrayers. So, by the way, I'll push it for a second. It's the only ever Canada-Ukraine treaty co-production feature film ever. Wow. And it is coming out this year. We made it last year. Two of our writers worked on Betrayers as PAs on set. Tony was instrumental in getting Betrayers made because we couldn't shoot in Ukraine. So we shot half the film in Italy and half the film in Ottawa. Tony was my man in Ottawa, as we like to say. Sorry, I do get a little distracted sometimes when I go down this path.
Passionate.
Anyhow, David Bezmozgas teaches screenwriting at Humber Polytechnic. And so I said, David, those kids who were on Betrayers last year, how are they? And he says, they're fantastic. I have probably a half dozen to a dozen really good writers in my class this year. So Tony interviewed them. We chose 4. We assigned story ideas because I'm very particular about the kind of stories we want Buzzfliks to be telling. And then working directly with Tony, who has major studio experience in development, as well as being a senior development executive at Vortex at one time. Working with Tony, the Humber students wrote 4 awesome screenplays. Then again, this idea had evolved into, well, then the kids are going to do everything. They're going to be the directors. They're going to be the cinematographers and the sound recordists and the costume designers, but they're also going to be the locations PAs emptying the garbage cans at the end of the day. Everybody's going to be there. So how does this work? And then the idea evolves further. Well, it's like nobody, whether they're directing or the cinematographer or they're emptying those garbage cans, is really bringing more to the table than anyone else. And film is so hierarchical. And that's one of the problems that stops kids from being able to show what they can do. So we decided to pay everybody exactly the same. So whether you're emptying the garbage cans on movie 1 or you're directing episode 1, because by the way, it's become a television series now, rather than a feature film, because we're going to do 4 episodes across the whole summer. So whether you're the director on the first episode, you might be emptying the garbage cans in the second episode. You could be the costume assistant on movie 2, and you could be directing movie 4. Everything is open, and it really is about people coming and showing what their passion and their ability and their focus is. Wow. So they all get paid the same amount of money. And then we thought, well, this is a big commitment. These kids all need to get summer jobs. They have tuition to pay. Life is hard out there right now. We see the cost of gasoline skyrocketing. We see the entire cost of living, and these kids went to high school during COVID. They've had one kick after another kick after another kick. So let's do something right here. A PA on a Directors Guild movie makes $230 a day or something like that. Right. And I thought, okay, we can do better than that. So we're paying everybody $250 a day. Now, it averages out pretty well because we don't have a cinematographer making $8,000 a week. We have a cinematographer making $1,250 a week. So we can afford to pay, the locations PA better. And in this sort of egalitarian idea, everybody's there. And as I've said to one kid who last summer planted trees all summer to try and make some money, I said, well, you're going to make about 3 times what you'd make planting trees. I am the most entrepreneurial, fiscally conservative guy you will ever meet. But I do believe that people need to be given a chance in this world. And that's really what we're trying to do.
Okay. And if I may, Trevor, just to add on to what Bill said, and Bill, hopefully we're not getting ahead of ourselves here. On Betrayers, 2 of those interns we had on Betrayers last year, one of them is directing our first film, and he's also the writer too. So,
wow. Might I ask also, you said that you're very particular about the kind of stories that you like to tell. What kind of stories are those that interest you?
Okay, so what I wanted to do is tell stories that were of interest to young people, right? And, growing up in the 70s and the 80s, we're looking at some pretty, great, very experimental films being made that defined youth culture at the time.
Right.
But what are kids interested in now? Well, I'm not really the guy to decide. I'm, old enough to be their grandfather. But I've noticed what's happening on YouTube. And I'm very curious about the future of communication, broadcast, and finding an audience.
Yeah.
One of the people I saw on YouTube, and I'm fully transparent about this, I saw this channel on YouTube, Dar Man. Now, Dar Man churns out massive volumes of product. Their focus appears to me to be on as making as much content as quickly as they possibly can. And when an audience shows through the data, they start making more of that content for that audience. Mm-hmm. I think that's a great idea, but it's not what I do. Right. What I do is make very high quality film and television. I thought, but Dar Man is telling these kinds of stories about kids in high school. So, and he's getting millions and millions of views. And I'm thinking to myself, there's interest here. And then, of course, we have this tremendous success in Canada with the legacy of Degrassi. And I'm thinking, these are the kind of stories that I think have relevance right now. So we wanted to tell stories that are focused in the world of high school to young adults who are navigating complexities that I couldn't have imagined back in the 1970s. And we wanted to tell stories that were relevant, but also family focused. We want stories because we want the world to see these movies, and we want the world to see these movies. We're making shows that will play just as well in Colombia as they will in Saudi, as they will in France or Canada. We're making films for the world, and we're telling stories that we think are universal. That's where the inception of this idea, with full credit to Dar Man, because he's built an amazing business, but I think we can do it our way too. And then the last little bit of that is that we wanted to tell Canadian stories about Canadian kids. And I looked around, we had a little mixer with the cohort that's coming, the 70 kids we have hired for the whole summer. About 50 of them were able to come to our mixer last week to get to know each other before they all head off to Windsor, Ontario to make the movies. And I looked around the room and I loved what I saw, because what I saw was Canada as it is today, right? I saw these bright young people of different gender identities, different racial backgrounds, different religious identities demonstrated through their dress. And I thought, this is Canada. And I looked around the room, that made me so happy. So we are making stories in Canada about Canada with these kids who are Canada.
Were you coming from the 70s and 80s? I mean, the 70s particularly was a very golden era of film. And I think that we have the potential for that to turn around and for that to ripple, essentially.
Look, we're not going to make Taxi Driver at Buzzflik.
No.
But one of these kids is.
Right.
They're coming out with 4 feature film credits. They're coming out with money in their pockets. And they're also coming out of this with 70 kids who have all been through it together, who are forming a cohort that will go into the industry together. If somebody's smart, they'll just grab them whole and go make movies with them tomorrow after the summer program is finished.
What an incredible experience. I mean, the amount of on-set experience that they're able to get from this is going to...
And they're going to go out and tell their own stories as they grow as filmmakers and artists. One of them, nothing will make me happier than to see, 10 years from now, when thousands of Buzzflixians are out there running the industry, one of them goes and makes a film that makes me cry. It's so beautiful. And I don't care what it is. It could be Taxi Driver, it could be Blue is the Warmest Color, or it could be Minions.
Anthony, you've worked at the very top of this industry, helping shape Oscar-winning careers. You've worked with Netflix, HBO, and Apple, just to name a few. What was it that drew you into Buzzflik?
I've had a very interesting journey in film, Trevor, but I would say it's twofold what really drew me to Buzzfliks. The first being obviously the chance again to work with Bill again, who we've worked together for years since I've been in Canada. We made many movies, and it's always a fantastic experience. Still me learning from a real producer as prolific as Bill has been fantastic. But as Bill kind of touched on, we found an interesting gap in the industry. Film students, they pay film schools to make movies, and we pay them. We pay film students and recent graduates to make movies. So it was a very interesting business model, and it really seemed like nobody else was doing it. So it was something we wanted to move forward with. And I liked the idea when Bill had originally pitched it to me, because I was fortunate enough not too long ago in 2024 to work on the Mr. Beast Amazon show season 1. And they had hired a lot of these kids who were film students or recently graduated. It was their first production, and what a production it was. But it was one of the best experiences I've had in my career thus far, working on that set with all these new people. And they were green in various levels of experience, but everyone was just very excited to be there, and everyone did a good job. And a lot of people thought things would go off the rails with that show because it was so massive and had such a big budget and other things as well. But it was, again, one of the best experiences I've had working in film and television in my entire career. And again, this is going back all the way to my time in Los Angeles. So right away, I was like, I recognized the opportunity there. And second, working at places like Netflix and Apple and the talent agency that I've done in Los Angeles, you're always working for somebody else, trying to achieve their vision, somebody else's vision. This is an opportunity for Bill and I to build our own business and build it our way and the way we see it. And we've been successful at it so far, and that is another thing that drew me to this endeavor.
That's super exciting. You had 7 years on NFL Sunday, by the way, which is incredible. One of the highest pressure live television environments in the world. Most scripted producers never have that kind of training. How has that experience of making real-time decisions where nothing can be redone shaped the kind of producer that you are? And how would you say that's given you an edge on your peers?
It's a great question. I think it really taught me, working there that long and working in that environment, the importance of pre-production and planning. With any film or television series, you do the majority of your work in pre-production. And if you do that well, it's really paint by numbers during production. Like, there's always going to be fires. There's always going to be unanticipated issues that come up. Right. But you learn to deal with that. So, but the better you plan, the better chances of the film and television, whatever project you're working on, is going to go very well. Right. And obviously, working in that environment for so long, you become calm, and nothing really gets you agitated. You don't freak out over the little things going wrong. You deal with it. You make quick decisions, and you make it fast, because you're under, we're not doing live broadcast here, but you're under a time limit still. We have to make our days. We have high page counts. So no matter what happens, again, that experience really taught me to just be calm, find a solution first, and be professional. And you can solve the problem 99.99% of the time.
Right. What a way to cut your teeth, though. That's incredible. Bill, you published some of the most daring personal storytelling of the 1980s through Vortex Comics, artists who really trusted their audiences with complexity. Now you're producing films tackling things that teenagers are living through daily. Do you see a thread connecting those two things, that belief in stories that don't talk down to the audience?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you've got to imagine, I founded Vortex Comics in 1980. And we published some, stuff to break our teeth on. But we were very fortunate that Toronto had this incredible scene of creative people at the time. And Vortex was able to be the nexus of that. Whether it was Chester Brown, who was publishing little mini comics, Seth, who was still a student at what was called OCA at the time, Dean Motter, who had a job doing album cover art. But we were there in the center of it, and I had always sort of seen this opportunity as like, these people, the world needs to know how great they are. And if there's one thing I've done in my life, is sort of like I've spotted great people, and I've said, let's see if we can't make the world know how great you are. And so there's obvious ones like Chester, who got the Governor General's Award for his Louis Riel comic. Seth, who was knighted in France, got the French Legion of Honor for his work as a cartoonist.
Wow.
But behind the scenes, the singer, Alana Miles, was the first receptionist at Vortex Comics. Vortex Comics, in its iteration where I was publishing the official comic books of NASCAR, reflected my own interest as a driver. We were also Jeff Gordon's sponsor. He won the Vortex Comics Rookie of the Year award in his rookie season in Grand National. I'm just really lucky in that in my life, because I put myself out there and am open to people and ideas and opportunities, that when I meet somebody who I think, whether they're Chester Brown or Jeff Gordon, and there are no two people on this planet more different from each other, but I can see that here's somebody who's got something, and I don't need a piece of that something. Chester owns, to this day, all of his work. I didn't take the copyrights on Yummy Fur. I didn't take the original art on Yummy Fur. That was all Chester's. What I wanted was, here's somebody who's got this incredible vision. Let's get behind him, right? Jeff Gordon, the world already knew he was going to be a superstar. I was just in the right place at the right time. But, again and again and again, we've made some wonderful movies because we've been open to good people, whether it's Wolf Cop, starting Lowell Dean's career,
Classic.
Whether it's an incredibly difficult movie we made, Forsaken, which is, I think, a masterpiece, will be recognized in time as such, starring Donald and Kiefer Sutherland and Demi Moore and Brian Cox, and directed by John Cassar, who, is probably one of the most prolific television directors in the world. But that was an incredibly difficult movie to make. Could write a whole book about it. But the main thing was showing up and saying, look, I don't know everything, but let's see if we can make this work. And that's what got Yummy Fur made. That's what got the NASCAR comics happening. That's what made Forsaken. That's what made Wolf Cop. That's what makes all of our Hallmark Christmas movies possible, because we're a little different here. We don't, we're outsiders. We didn't come up with jobs at television networks and, in the big companies and then go out and started our own shingle. We've been independent as a company since day one. And the only way you're going to survive as an independent is by showing the world what you can do. So when we started making Hallmark Christmas movies, we just went out and made them. And the folks at Hallmark saw them and said, hey, these are good. These are, in their opinion, almost as good as what we make in-house. So yes, we'll buy these. And then now with Buzzfliks, it's the exact same thing. If you imagine, I go into a network and I'm saying, I'm making the whole movie with students. They're going to direct them. They're going to write them. They're going to do the cinematography on them. You will have no approvals over the crew. Oh, by the way, the cast are all unknown kids as well. There are no names in these movies. And if you imagine going into a television network and pitching that and see how quickly you see the door. So, but I did do that. And two things happened. One, we went and said, well, we're doing it anyhow. Would you like to be part of this? And two, this was the nicest reaction I got. I went to Hollywood Suite, who have purchased all 4 episodes of Walkerville, which is what we're calling the show. And their response wasn't, Bill, how do we know these won't be garbage? The door's over there. Their response was, oh, I wish there'd been something like this when I came out of school.
Right. That's the
good people giving a good opportunity to these young people. So I am forever grateful to Suzanne and Sharon and David at Hollywood Suite. They're an inspiration. And they saw the possibility.
I'm surprised it hasn't been done sooner.
I know. Well, so a funny thing is, I have a family member who happens to teach at the Harvard Business School. And so I asked her, I said, you've got access to all these academic libraries. there must be a case study on somebody doing something like this. And she came back to me with a list. Here's all your comparables, as these business school types do. And I looked at them all and said, well, these aren't comparables. Everyone on this list has to pay to participate in these programs. We're paying the students. There's nothing like it. There has, to the best of my knowledge, never been anything like this. It's not a contest. There are no challenges. It's not Project Greenlight. It's not, anything like that. It's something new.
Well, I'm excited to see how this all comes together. I mean, I think this is going to be, like you said, I think it's going to gain traction, and I think it'll kickstart a trend.
Here's the other fun part of this, right? We're going to show the whole world, because I thought people are going to come along because we have some very good mentors working with the kids. Serious people in the industry, Emmy and Academy Award nominated artists are mentoring the students. And a cynical person would say, oh yeah, I know who's making these movies. The mentors are making the movies. These kids are just slave labor. So it's like, okay, well, that's not true. And we're going to prove it's not true, because we're going to document everything and put it up daily on YouTube. Daily. So as I say to the kids, if you drop a lens on set on Tuesday, because you're the camera assistant, your granny's going to be able to go to YouTube on Thursday and watch you cry. Full transparency, so the world can see on YouTube that the kids are doing everything. And then the added bonus of that is we're kind of by accident, we've created an unscripted YouTube show of these wonderful students going out and making these movies. And it'll be all up there. And, I've been trying to find comparables to what we're going to do on YouTube. And the absolute closest thing, and I love how this is circular, it's Drive to Survive, where real people are in a real circumstance with consequences and a great deal of money at risk, working at the highest possible levels. That's Drive to Survive. And with the exception that no one is at risk of death in a fiery crash, we're doing something similar. We've got these real kids with serious money on the line, more money than they will get to make a movie with under the normal system for the first 20 years of their careers.
Wow.
And so we're going to document that. And there will be tears and there will be joy. And the world is going to get to see it all.
Wow. Content for days.
6 minutes of new content daily, and a 20-minute recap every week. And, for me, the old guy in the room, I now get to participate in the digital economy of 2026, which is YouTube.
That's such a good idea. I think it's brilliant. You're
Thanks.
covering all your bases. You've got the films and you've got the content on YouTube. So it's like, yeah.
Well, these movies have to pay their own way, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So, we know how to access tax credits and funding models, but one of the things we've done at Vortex since its inception is we actually deficit finance the movies with our own money, and then we take them to market and we sell them. And we have been very, very successful at that.
Anthony, there's something almost poetic at the heart of Buzzfliks. You're producing Offline, a film about stepping away from digital noise while simultaneously building a brand that lives entirely on social media and encourages students to share everything publicly. Was that tension intentional? And is the film really making a case for being more intentional online rather than just unplugging?
It's a great question. It was honestly not intentional when we first developed and pitched that concept. And, we realized the irony in relation to our business model soon after that concept. I mean, the original idea behind Offline was to, we wanted to find topics that kids today could really relate to. And one of them I thought of was digital detox. Like, who wouldn't be interested in doing that these days as everyone's connected to social media and how it affects us? I mean, you have countries now banning social media up to a certain age. So we thought that would be a very interesting topic that people would respond to, or that it would resonate with people. And so far it has. So, one of the film's many messages in that film is very complex. And our writer, Megan, has done a fantastic job bringing that script to life. But it is part of the messaging in that movie is being more intentional and true to yourself online. The main character starts out as very performative because she feels she has to be that way on social media and with her online presence. And by the end, she realizes it's good to unplug and be more true to yourself and let others know that as well. And that movie also has a lot to do with probably the main theme. It's about female empowerment in 2026, more so than anything. So we're very excited about that one, and I can't wait to bring that to the world. And again, our writer Megan, who I think recently just graduated, did a fantastic job with that story.
And as a quick note on what Tony said there, of the 70 kids, and we hired entirely based on attitude and availability. But of the 70 kids we hired, over half are women. 3 of the 4 scripts written by women.
Yeah.
And quite probably half of the movies will be directed by women.
Our entire AD team for episode 1 it's a female department.
To give an example, Jade, who wrote one of the movies, is the first AD on the first movie.
We need more of that in the world, I think. That's super important.
We've made a conscious effort to, as I said earlier, see that the kids we hired represent Canada today, right? And so we see all kinds of faces out there on the team. And I think we have done a great job of making sure that we have a great mix that recognizes what Canada looks like today and who we hired.
A realistic cross-section to really amplify female voices, I think, is super important. I think that's...
These female voices don't need amplifying. They are so proud and confident and talented, these young ladies. But it is great for the world to see that all those things are the case.
Bill, most productions lock down what crew can share publicly. Buzzflik flips that completely. You're actively encouraging students to document and post everything. What's the thinking behind that, and what does it say about where film culture is headed?
Okay, I touched on this a bit earlier, but I'll repeat myself for the benefit of what we're doing here. Yeah. One of the main reasons we wanted the free social media on what we're doing is so the world can tune in both to our social media channels, but also to the participants' own social media channels and see that they're doing this themselves, creating essentially a digital resume.
Right.
So if I'm thinking of hiring Adrian to direct a movie 2 years from now, and I'm wondering, well, what's his demeanor like on set? Well, let's look at some of this social media and watch Adrian direct, because people put videos of him behind the scenes working with the actors up on the YouTube channel. Yeah. So the kids get this kind of digital resume effect out of it. As I mentioned earlier, we want the world to see that it's the students making the films, that the mentors are just there as their guardrails and crash pads. You know, if somebody has a little meltdown, we have a very seasoned director, Gail Harvey, who's there to say, well, you know, I've been through this before, and here's how I solved the problem. How do you think you're going to solve this problem? And if the camera department starts getting a little, you know, you can light yourself into a box, right? You start the day and the lighting gets more and more complicated. And we used to have a joke back when we were shooting on film. It's like, if the dots and fingers come out, your day is gone, right? And dots and fingers are these tiny little flags they put into the lights to shape the light on somebody's face and reflect here. You start getting into that kind of stuff, you've lost your day, right? So if the dots and fingers come out, we have a seasoned cinematographer there to say to Zav, who's the cinematographer on the first movie, is saying, hey, you know, maybe you should back up, simplify the lighting. How would you solve that problem? And again, being Socratic in what we do, not prescriptive. So these people are great. They have their own ideas. They are not as experienced as we are, but that's the only difference. So Socratically saying, you know, you're getting into a box there. What happens when you turn around? You're going to have to move 50 lights. And maybe that very talented young cinematographer goes, oh, you're right, I should simplify this, because when we turn around, I'm screwed. So, you know.
I've noticed that lighting has sort of shifted. Like if you look at films from even like 10, 15 years ago compared to now, is that something that you've noticed as well? It so seems like flatter and darker and... desaturated, perhaps? Is that a lighting thing? This is like this.
I think there's interesting things that are going on with the language of image, because it's no longer film, right?
Right.
It's no longer film and television.
Right.
It is the digital image out in the world.
Right.
You know, I've made big movies. I've made lots of movies on 35 millimeter film. I've been fortunate to have edited movies on 35 millimeter film in my career. And watching the digital changes that have happened, one of the most significant things, I remember we were mixing, I can't even remember which movie it was, but we were mixing a movie probably about 15 years ago. And we're in the big theater, Dolby 5.1, now Dolby Atmos, beautiful projection. And I'm listening to this incredible sound. And then I'm sitting there going, no one's going to watch this movie this way. What happens if we put it up on a crappy television this big?
Right.
And so we literally got the worst pair of computer speakers we could find at the facility. We plugged them into the board and said, let's see how this sounds on these crappy small speakers.
Right.
And we redid the mix because the small speakers compressed everything together and it became mud.
Right.
And so our craft to make this beautiful, and I'm talking about sound, but the exact same thing applies to picture, to make this beautiful image, to make this beautiful audioscape that isn't going to work in the medium whereby most people are going to connect with the work, is a fool's pursuit. Now you can do both. And now when we do our DCPs, for instance, we do a theatrical color space and we do a video color space. We acknowledge that, you know, this is going to be hopefully it's on Netflix, because that's where a lot of people are watching movies. So why would we make something that isn't going to work on Netflix, that only works if you do the blessed thing, which is have that wonderful theatrical experience? Right. But let's not kid ourselves. I've made 80 movies. I haven't had a theatrical movie in the last 4 years.
Yeah.
So in terms of the change of the image, I think it is just the visual language changes because we know how people are consuming the work. And the lighting technology has, of course, changed as well. We're using these LED panels. You know, a gaffer who used to have to, be so frustrated with one of his technicians, he'd get up on the ladder himself and he'd drop a gel or a net in front of one of the lamps. He just sits there with his iPad now, dialing in the color space.
Great.
It's changed.
It's totally changed. To your point, I mean, audio engineering, I know a lot of audio engineers that mix for phone specifically, because that's how people are not even listening to it on proper speakers anymore, or even headphones. So yeah, you have to be able to tailor it to how it's going to be listened or absorbed.
Yeah, the speaker on this watch is molecules, just a few of them.
Just like 3 molecules put together. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's how people are just like, yeah, like listening to it. Okay. It's like, okay. Yeah, that's the way it is now. So mentorship in film has traditionally been informal and hard to access unless you knew the right people. Buzzflik makes it structured and paid and open. What did your own early experiences teach you about what a better version of that system could look like?
Well, I can talk, as I do a lot, but maybe Tony wants to talk. I'm going to say one thing and I'm going to let Tony talk.
Okay.
We've both been Hollywood assistants. Tony was, in the mailroom, in the agency, on a desk. I was on the desk and started as the assistant to one of the top managers in LA, a man who's no longer alive, sadly, named Jeff Pollock. Jeff was Will Smith's manager. He was Beyonce's manager.
Whoa.
And we've both started in very modest roles in very hard environments. And you gained mentorship, but you paid a lot of price for it.
That's a great way to put it, Bill. So everyone knows that film is hard, or if you watch any documentary or watch any behind the scenes, film is very hard. Why is it so hard? Because most of the crews are untrained because they've never been mentored properly. If people actually knew what they were doing half the time, and this goes to the top, network executives, studio executives, all the way down to the PAs. If they were actually mentored and actually were trained in some way, things would run a lot smoother in film and TV. It probably would be a lot more efficient. So you would probably hear less horror stories, and maybe, I don't know, think of the industry would be very changed. But my experience in Hollywood was cutthroat, as Bill touched on. It was sink or swim. You were mentored to an extent, but it wasn't like a student teacher mentorship. It was you watch your boss yell at people on the phone and you learn from that. You learn how he deals with that. And then you hope to not screw up too badly so you can keep your job for the next day and keep learning. That was the whole opportunity. So they never sat down with you and were like, okay, here's how the day went. Here's what I should have done better. I don't think that ever happened once to me in my entire career. Now, I do see some past people I've worked for as mentors, but not exactly in the way that we're talking about here, and not in the way that we do it at Buzzflix. Buzzflix, mentors are specifically on set to be mentors. You know, we want to make sure that people are things aren't going to go off the rails, and they can ask questions. We're going to give advice. They can ask us questions. We are available for them. You know, and hopefully the students take advantage and utilize us. That's why we're there, and no other part of the industry offers that.
And the young people aren't here to advance our careers. We're here to advance their careers.
Right.
And that's where the normal model breaks. Usually, yeah, kid, you work 22 hours a day. I'm yell and scream at you, and I wanted equal, not sweet and low, and all of that, but you'll have a job at the end of the day.
Right.
Again, flip that the other way around. We've all got great careers.
Yeah.
Right? We've all done amazing things in this industry, and we're there to support the kids. They're not there to take us further, which is the standard Hollywood model.
Absolutely. So not only do you have the potential to really raise them up and like create people that know how to do their jobs better, but also improve the quality of films that we're all able to watch. So it's really like you're doing God's work out here, fellas. I just want to say it's fantastic.
Thanks.
Hopefully we'll spark a lot of inspiration in other people and want to do the same. So
We're so excited. We're already planning the 2027 Buzzflix.
Windsor sits right across from Detroit, a city that's become a global symbol of creative reinvention and rebuilding on your own terms. Was that part of the pull to shoot there? And does that border town energy show up in the films at all?
Windsor was really attractive for a lot of reasons. You know, about 20 years ago, one of the things that people don't know I did was bring the first group of feature films to Northern Ontario. We shot the first big budget feature in Sault Ste. Marie. We taught 2 or 3 big movies with big stars in Sudbury. We brought things to North Bay. We worked with the government of the day who had just realized that, hey, resource exploitation isn't necessarily about pulling rocks out of the ground. It's about where do we have resources? And we have resources in the abilities of our young people. Yeah. So we were able to tap into the Northern Ontario funding that it was previously only been used for timber and mining, and make a number of feature films in Northern Ontario. And you can look at them today. We made Compulsion with Heather Graham and Carrie Ann Moss. We made A Dark Truth with Forrest Whitaker and Andy Garcia. The list goes on, the big movies we took up to the north. Yeah. And there's now an industry in Northern Ontario. It's nicely established. Oh, I would also say, I brought Mark Montefiore up to Sudbury to make the movie Cass and Dylan, starring Tatiana Maslany and some Oscar winner, Richard Dreyfuss, and showed Mark how to access that money. And Mark subsequently took Shoresy up there. He took Letterkenny up there. He's been a bedrock of the industry in Sudbury. So I saw what was good and bad about going into unbroken ground and making movies in these cities. We chased a funding model back then, and it was really very successful for us. There is no funding model for Windsor, Ontario, but there is a city that is one of the most interesting, vibrant cities in Southern Ontario that doesn't have a film community yet. There are some great filmmakers who live in Windsor by choice. A first AD who I've worked with many times lives in Windsor. There are a couple of great directors in town making their own movies, but there isn't an established industry in Windsor. And I felt, and Windsor is one of the larger cities in Ontario, right? It's bigger than, I mean, that's probably about the same size as Kingston, which has got a bit of an industry going now. So we thought, okay, here's an opportunity to go somewhere where we're bringing these students and they're not going to be eclipsed by, here's an episode of Star Trek that's taking up all of downtown for a month. That they can go in and they can actually be the filmmakers in town. as opposed to an afterthought, which they would be in a lot of other jurisdictions. That was part of it. Part of it is we met with the civic leadership in Windsor, and they're great people. And that's what happened to me in Sudbury. That's what happened to me in Sault Ste. Marie. That's what happened in North Bay. And I thought, you find great people in the local government, and we're bringing something to them, and they acknowledged it. We are not getting any funding by going to Windsor. I want to be really clear because people think you're always chasing that funding dollar. City is not giving us any additional funding. The province isn't giving us any additional funding for working in Windsor. We did apply to the Canada Summer Jobs Program, and we're spending several $1 million on student labor this summer. We got a grant of $12,500 from the Canada Summer Jobs Program. And great, happy to take it.
Yeah.
But the program is not about chasing these funding opportunities. The program is, here's a great city to work in where the kids can be the focus of what's going on in town. And we wanted that for them. What also happens that we're calling the show Walkerville. Walkerville is a part of Windsor, one of the most historic parts of Windsor. We are going to be shooting at Walkerville Collegiate, which happens to be Windsor's High School of the Arts. The kids at Walkerville Collegiate are not working as technicians on our movie. They're too young, but in a few years they will be.
Plus, Windsor has a really cool kind of classic feel to it. Just like the location itself is really interesting.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's going to play really well.
It's a beautiful city.
Yeah.
It's got so many periods to it of prosperity, which left architectural gems behind. It does have this incredible, backdrop, which is Detroit. Right? It's funny because, when you're in Windsor, I'm lived most of my life in Toronto. The water is south, right? From Toronto, the water, you see water, you're looking south.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Windsor is actually south of Detroit, not north of it.
That's the only
So
thing
when you see the river, you're looking north at Detroit. So you're in downtown Windsor, which just and you look down Willette Street, the main street, I'm feeling like I'm looking south, but I know I'm looking north. And I see a big city because it blends, because you don't see the river and it blends and you're in a big city. So when we tell our stories, of course, there's an advantage to seeing a larger city in the landscape. It makes some of the stories more approachable if they feel more urban.
Yeah. Absolutely. Being able to use that in the background. Are you playing it as if all the stories take place in Windsor, or are you?
All the stories take place in Windsor. Windsor is our Degrassi.
Yes. That's the gold standard, essentially.
I love Degrassi.
Yeah.
I've loved it since Degrassi Jr., not the kids of Degrassi Street.
Was that back in the 80s? That would have been like that was,
Linda Schuyler, Stephen Stone, two of the foundational people to our industry. Oh, and I would mention that Stephen Stone co-wrote all of Alana Miles' hit songs.
Whoa. He's wearing all the hats, this guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow. Are there any traits of a script that crosses your desk and immediately holds your attention? What is it that specifically you look for in something that you'd like to develop?
Can I answer this one? Yeah, I can talk all day, Trevor, about this topic. To answer your second question about what specifically do you look for, something you'd like to develop. So every company, if you're a freelance producer, I guess that's different. But if you're looking for a company, they always have mandates, every 3 months or so. Oh, we're looking for horror scripts with diverse leads, or we're looking for comedies with these elements. So, that really dictates what you're looking to develop. Obviously, there's so much content and material out there. What we look for, like traits we look for that come across our desk that holds our attention. A script, you probably heard this before, must grab your attention in the first few pages, because there's just so much content, and reading a script is such a long process, and it really takes a lot of your time, and there's just so much kind of flowing through your desk that if it's not an interesting script in the first few pages, we're talking like 3 pages, maybe 5, then likely we're just going to pass without reading the entire thing. And so you really need that hook, and it really needs to grab your attention right away. What does this mean? How do you do that? The writer must have a unique voice, and you can see that in their prose and writing right away. And that unique voice translates into character. which is the most important part of a script. If I can feel this character and it's unique and they stand out in some way in the first few pages, then that's a script I want to read. And, that's a script I will likely finish. And once in a while, you do find those. Not often, but you do.
Okay.
And I don't want to speak out of turn, but all the scripts that we've written, these students have written, I should say, each one has their own very unique voice, and each one really, really stands out. And we've heard nothing but positive feedback from everybody who's read it so far.
Right. And they're rooted in Canadian themes as well as being rooted in family as well, like you mentioned. So that's super.
Absolutely. We were doing the opposite of Euphoria on HBO.
Right. Okay. That's, what the world needs more of that, I think, perhaps.
We love Euphoria. That's a great show. We're doing the opposite.
Very well. Yeah. Yeah. It's just very dark. Right?
Well, there's the incredibly democratic aspect of YouTube, right?
Mm-hmm.
If there's an audience for something, they can find it on YouTube. There's no longer a filter between a great story and its intended audience.
How hands are you typically on a production normally versus something like this that'll be handled primarily by the students?
Well, speaking for myself, I haven't been active on set for at least a dozen years. My role is I'm the executive chairman of Vortex Media. We have 30 regular full-time employees and a large number of freelancers that work on the half dozen to a dozen movies we make every year. In the past, of course, I've done an awful lot of different jobs in film, from, props man to focus puller. But now what my job is on set is to, I got a pair of eyes that's seen an awful lot of filmmaking, and I just try and spot the fires before they start.
Yeah, likewise. Could not have said that better. I mean, it really depends, Trevor, on your position on any given production. So as a producer, and normally as a producer, I want to be involved in every aspect of it. I want to know what the makeup artists are doing. I want to know what camera's doing, because I got to know every piece of equipment. I have to know every piece of the sound equipment, just so we know exactly what we can be using and where we can save. So you have to know everything. Obviously, Buzzflik is a little bit different because the students are going to be, essentially controlling the creative and kind of the day by day. But I will be sitting in on most of those meetings and aware of everything that is going on. We'll step in here and there. And as Bill said, anticipate fires ahead of time so that we don't have disasters on any given day. But really, it's up to the students to create this. We're not creating this, as Bill said earlier many times. The students are.
What's the most valuable lesson your career has taught you that no film school covers?
Humility. It all comes down to humility. No one knows everything. No one is better than anyone else. And if you're humble and open, the world can present options to you and you can make choices. But if you're egotistical and closed, you will miss the best opportunities that come along in this life.
That's sage-like. I think that's more people need to hear that. I know a lot of people that could really learn that lesson.
Well, we didn't hire certain people because we thought they had an ego and chip on their shoulder and whatnot. So
yeah, who wants to work with somebody like that? Not me.
A healthy self-image is important. A certain healthy ego is an important thing, but a sense that you're superior to another person is not beneficial.
To add to that response, if I may, Trevor, something that I've learned in, my years working in this industry is just to be professional at all times. You might be at the point of crying on set. I've seen people have heart attacks on set, especially investors or producer types. And, I've seen people yell, and because, people think they have this image of, especially younger people probably see this image of, Christian Bale back in the day yelling because somebody was in his eyesight and whatnot. And, it doesn't matter what level you're at, whether you're a studio head or a PA, and no matter what happens on set, there's a fire or somebody crashes a car or something. No matter how stressed or tired you are, be a professional at all times, because people will recognize that, they will see that, and they will likely want to work with you again and again and have more respect for you as a result.
When you're in a leadership position, when you're directing a movie, as an example, and you have a crew and cast of 50 to 70 people out there, you don't have 70 people working for you. You're there working for 70 people.
The perfect way to look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Drop the ego. Yeah. It's communal thing. You're there to make something beautiful. So put it
Yeah.
all together.
A collaborative work of art.
That's it. Nice. That's a soundbite right there. How has the streaming era changed what gets made and what doesn't this day and age?
I think we're a perfect example that this is getting made because of streaming, because of digital distribution, because of YouTube. I can't say YouTube enough, right? I know that and I have a big distribution company, these films will be made available on iTunes and Amazon and Roku and Tubi and blah, blah, blah. And we will be trying to sell them into the marketplace because that's what we do. We have movies, little indie horror film that we financed last year. It's on Netflix right now. It's called Dream Eater. It's great, by the way. But streaming it's hurt old financial models, it's created new ones. It has unfortunately, for a period of time, which I think we're coming to the end of, concentrated too much ability to get things made in too few hands, basically. And with Netflix's model of really wanting to own everything, copyright, future rights, everything, well, that, for starters, is anathema to what I've spent my entire life doing, which is making sure the artists actually own what they make. But it also crushed opportunity. And when opportunity is crushed, you just don't get good work anymore. So the democratization of streaming, with everything from fast channels to, digital aggregators like Tubi to YouTube, means that we can tell stories and find an audience, which is what it's always about. Yeah. Back when there were 3 television stations, if you wanted to find an audience, your first audience was the executive at one of the networks. Now your audience is there. The revenue concentration isn't the same. It's hard. When the networks were there, well, all the advertising money went into 3 sets of hands, and those 3 sets of hands doled the money out. Budgets were big. If you were Norman Jewison and you were making Westerns for the networks, you had a career that went on to be one of the greatest careers in Canadian film, right? But starting with the CBC, I might add, which gave him the chops to go down to LA and get the directing work. But now we've traded these paper dollars for digital dimes. It's unfortunate, but it's true. We have to be making movies for less. We're very lucky in Canada to have consistent, long-term, multi-party government support for our industry. Doesn't matter who's in charge, what their manifesto is. Everyone recognizes that film and television create 2 things that Canada can't do without: well-paying jobs and our culture.
What advice do you have for a director? Say a director has an incredible film and doesn't know where to take it or how to get it out. What do you suggest he or she do?
Well, I'll use Dream Eater as the example because I financed the first film through, I was an investor in an organization called Cinecoup a number of years ago. It was another effort to surface new filmmakers. But it was more contest-based, and we ended up making the Wolf Cop movies out of Cinecoup. And the last Cinecoup film that we financed was a movie called Helmington, which it's okay, but it's not as good as what I knew the team was capable of doing. So I stayed in touch with that team, and the industry continued to change, and we tried to get more work for them. And finally, they said, we're just going to go out and do it. We're going to, we've saved up some money. We've bought some equipment. We're going to go out and make the movie. So we gave them $10,000 which represented, I think, 20% of their $50,000 budget. And they went out and they just did it, right? They had worked so hard, and they're such good filmmakers, and they worked really, really hard. So Tony actually was a development executive at Vortex when we were working with the team on Dream Eater. So we put our entire organization's abilities behind them. We had our finance guy help them work on their finance plan and their tax credits. We had Tony working with them, helping them on the structure of their scripts and some of their planning. We did everything we could for them. But at the end of the day, they went out and they made their movie. We were there to help. but we didn't do it. They did it. And they are actually part of the inspiration for Buzzflix. And no question in my mind, in the back of my brain, seeing them go and do this. So these are not young filmmakers anymore. They were young when they made Helmington. They're now mid-career filmmakers. And they go out and they make commercials and industrial videos and do all kinds of things, but they have their passion still, which is most important. And they went out with limited resources and told a story that could be told with limited resources. And two great things happened to them. One, Eli Roth saw their movie and said, "This is the scariest movie I've seen in years." He put his name on it. It's now called Eli Roth Presents. And in Canada, it's on Netflix right now.
Okay.
Right? This tiny little film made by these great young filmmakers who aren't kids anymore, but they're still young filmmakers. And they're so passionate and so talented. And they just went out and did it. And it's a great success story for them.
What are your thoughts on the use of AI in film? Do you think that there's a place for it ethically, or do you think that overall it's a detriment to the art form?
Well, I have a little badge. I'm going to preview to this little badge that Buzzflix is making up. Where we like to give little bits of water bottles and hats and things to the crew. I've got a little patch that says 100% human made.
I love it.
Right?
Yeah.
Because I looked at what AI could do. And, I actually had one of my employees work with some AIs. Let's see what kind of script the AI can write. And it wasn't great.
No.
Probably could have made it. I could have made that script in the 80s and no one would have complained because our scripts were so bad back then. But it was just, it was, what are they calling it now? Slop?
Yeah, AI slop. Yeah, that's
AI slop. And that's exactly what it is. So, can it produce consumable slop? Yes, we could all eat, bad, overprocessed oatmeal for 3 meals a day as well. But we're working with artists here. Yeah. And artists will use whatever tools enhance their ability to be artists. Yeah. I just don't know if AI is that tool.
What are your thoughts on that, Tony?
Yeah, look, AI, I agree with what Bill said. AI is not going away, and we will find more and more ways to integrate it into our overall production workflow. On the scripted side, nowhere near there yet. You need humans writing these scripts and forming these stories and working with all the various arts and themes and putting all that together, and AI just cannot do that yet. But there are some small things now that AI can help with, some logistical things, organization, maybe some things on the post-production side AI can help with, because a lot of those processes, just are repetitive, and AI can easily do that probably better than a human can. So it will only grow, and it's not going away, but we're not there yet.
Yeah.
In terms of it taking over or taking people's jobs or whatnot.
Right. As far as creative goes, we want to make sure that it's coming from the soul, which a machine can only try and replicate. That's something that it could never possibly do. So if it can expedite any kind of the business side or whatever, planning or scheduling, like you mentioned, I think that's probably a better use of it.
Absolutely.
Do you have any advice for any upcoming filmmakers? Anybody out there that just is super passionate about producing or directing or writing? Besides go out and do it, is there any practical tips that you can give them? I know everyone's got a phone in their pocket. Everyone is a walking studio these days. Anything outside of that that you can recommend to them?
The most important thing, tell stories that you care deeply about.
Yeah, I think early on in your career, what Bill touched on, have a little humility. So a lot of kids come out during film school or come out of film school. I'm a producer. Okay, what have you produced? A short film. That's great. That's an achievement by itself, but you're not a producer yet. Can you access funding? Do you know how the development process works? There's a lot to learn as a producer. You wear many hats. So if you start doing other jobs on the production team, whether it's a PA, whether it's as an assistant production manager or production coordinator, doing all those jobs for a little while over multiple projects and years, that will teach you how to be a good producer and managing people and all the various actors, talent, and all the various problems that can happen. That will teach you how to be a producer. Don't just come out of film school thinking you're a director or a producer. And you might be, but the vast majority of people are not.
Wearing as many hats as possible and trying to just get a sense of everything, trying to
learn,
ask questions,
be open.
We've got 4 episodes of the show and one summer. and an experience these students will talk about for the rest of their lives. What does success look like for these students moving into the future? I guess just consistent work, just consistent careers. What does that look like in your opinion?
I think it's not everyone who does this will want to be doing this 5 years from now. It's hard. It's financially, a lot of sacrifices are made by the technicians and the crew, and the writers and the actors. It's a hard business. We see the success stories and we don't see the people who are, can't buy a can of beans. Yeah. And so not everybody will stay in the business. But I guess what I hope they take forward from this is it is hard. And if it matters to you, it's worth it.
Follow your passion, essentially.
Yeah.
Self-tape or in-person audition for actors? What do you prefer as far as what you see?
I think it's interesting. I used to swear by in-person auditions.
Yeah.
And sat in many, many grueling casting sessions, both for those of us behind the table and for the performers on the other side of the table, pouring their hearts out, not knowing what we were thinking, or worse, imagining what we were thinking, which was probably awful.
It works.
Right? Yeah. So I like self-taping in that the artist has a chance to, show what they can do with a little less pressure on, without walking into a hall where there's 10 other actors who look just like you.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And, probably most of whom because you've seen them at the last 10 auditions. So I think that the self-tape actually has a opportunity for more people to be showing their best work. Yeah. The audition is a very nerve-wracking process. Obviously, lots and lots of actors take classes specifically about nailing the audition. Yes. In fact, one of the things I warn the young directors about is well, all these guys have taken classes on auditioning. You've got to sort out the ones that can really act. And the self-tape gives a little bit more breathing room to do that. I do think at the end of the day, when it's down to difficult decisions, you need to meet the people because it's all about the people. Yeah. So it's a hybrid is what I still like to see. But we see more people because of the self-tape options. Before, when it was just pick and res, when literally, I'll tell another old guy story. Great Canadian actor, Billy Van, if you know who he was, right? He was the voice of Spider-Man. No, was that Larry Solway? Okay. Anyhow, Billy Van, late in his career, was living at the actor's retirement home and breakdown service, because he wanted something to do during the days. He was their courier.
Wow.
And you'd be in the office and a guy would come, breakdown services who used to send out the pics and res, just still headshots with resumes on the back, right?
Yeah.
Right? Of a previous generation. And this great Canadian actor would bring them into your office and we would bring him in and we would get him to tell us war stories about, this movie and that movie and this Canadian TV show from the 1950s. And it was great seeing him, right? But you only got so much. So you get these big stacks. And the truth was, every producer I worked with at the time, first thing they would do is they would sort the envelopes by what agency they came from. And the B agencies, those envelopes wouldn't get opened unless nothing good was in the envelopes from the A agencies. And even then, you'd look at the picture, face looks okay. Everybody had a great headshot. They went to a great headshot photographer. You flip that picture over, and the first thing you do is, what are their credits? And more importantly, what directors have hired them time and time again? Right? That was the first thing I would look for on any resume when I got to that stage. It's does the same director hire this person over and over again? Or do they work here one, here one, here one? Right? Especially for up-and-coming actors rather than journeymen. Now with, the breakdown, the workbook, we can go through and we can look at everything. And you don't get that sort of self-sorting. So a great performer who doesn't have the contacts to have that A-list agent yet is going to have a lot more opportunity working with workbook than back in the day when I'm sorting the envelopes out and really more interested in talking to Billy Van.
Yeah. Right. Oh man, that's great. I got to look him up. He was the voice. What Spider?
Hilarious House of Frightenstein. That was Billy Van. The Hilarious House of Frightenstein.
Oh. Which Spider-Man? Oh, he didn't do Spider-Man.
No, it was Larry Solway who did the voice of Spider-Man in the Ralph Bakshi animated Spider-Man cartoon that they made in Ottawa.
Oh, I love Bakshi. Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Okay, so we're getting down to the final few here. It's going to be rapid fire questions. How do you balance work life and the rest of your life? Do you have any tips for anybody out there? Do you vacation? How do you unwind? Where do you like to go?
Bill's gonna love this question.
Okay. So I spend half the year in Portugal.
Oh, wow. Okay. I've been looking at Portugal. Yeah. That sounds like that's a beautiful.
It's a wonderful country. The food's great. The weather's great. I don't spend winters in Canada anymore. I got rid of my skis.
Yeah.
So
smart.
And but how do I unwind? Yeah. I watch a lot of shows on YouTube these days.
Okay. Anything you recommend?
Well, I like car racing. So, I watch channels like The Race. I watch guys like Legit Street Cars who repair and soup up cars. I'm still a car guy at my core. I don't go out to the track anymore. My wife won't let me do that, but we did put a racing simulator here with iRacing in the office.
Oh, cool.
Yep.
Really?
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. So we have, we're not, it's not like the, basketball court in the 2000, the Y2K company that had the basketball court in the lobby, but we do have a racing sim in the corner. Okay. And I'm very fortunate. I've traveled all over the world making movies. I've been very lucky I now have friends everywhere from Italy to Uruguay to Norway to Ukraine. And so I do like to go and visit my friends from time to time as well.
How about yourself, Tony?
I have 3 young children under 3.5, so there is really no rest for me whatsoever. But in this business, you're working 15-hour days sometime just in prep, and that's not even in production. You need to take time for yourself or you will burn out very, very quickly. And we've seen it, Bill and I have seen it happen so many times. So you just need to find ways to just step away. Yep. Somehow make time for it, doesn't matter what's going on, and take some time for yourself. Me personally, I'll take a history book so I don't have to read, when I get tired of reading scripts or working in development, I'll read a history book about Napoleon Bonaparte or something, and that calms me down for a bit, and I can continue my work or be more relaxed after that. So you need to take time for yourself no matter what's going on in this business.
Yeah,
I will speak to one piece that's very important to me, right? And that's the mental health of all of the filmmakers, both the Buzzflixians, as we're now calling them, but everybody who works on all of our movies, right? This industry can ask too much of people. And when your family life or your health are at risk, when you drink too much, when you're taking drugs to stay awake, you've crossed a line and you need to step back.
Yes.
And the mental health of the filmmakers, from the whole crew, is something that it's not worth it. No work of art is worth destroying the people who create the art.
There it is. A lot of people feel
we're not saving lives here.
This is entertainment. Yeah. You got to treat yourself, with the respect that you deserve and not kill yourself for it. A lot of people feel like they have to do that. So that's great advice. Yeah.
I have a friend who is an eye surgeon and, works a very, very delicate surgery with a group of people, especially if they're reconstructing somebody who's been in an accident. Mm-hmm. And they have a joke when they're sitting there and things get a little tense in the operating theater. They go, "Hey, people, we're not making a movie here."
That's great. Do you have any favorite filmmakers right now? Anybody that you're able to name? Any films or shows that you've been watching recently? I know, Bill, you just mentioned that you're into the racing shows on YouTube. Tony, are you watching anything right now that you can recommend for anybody watching?
I haven't had a chance to watch anything in the last 5 months.
Okay.
I had 2 twin daughters, so it's been tough to do that between taking care of them and obviously prepping these movies. But the best film I've seen as of last year, the last movie I watched before my daughters were born was Weapons. Incredible movie. Most original movie I've seen in years.
Yes.
Blew me away. If Hollywood did more of that, whether on the indie side or Hollywood, whatever, the industry would be saved.
I think Zach Kreger is my favorite director right now. Absolutely. That's a great, man. Oh, yeah. Have you seen Barbarian? That is
Oh, yeah.
so
Great movie.
mind-blowingly good. It's so like doesn't go at all how you expect it to. Absolutely. And so very cool. Yeah, Weapons was amazing. Great choice. And if you could have dinner with any person in the film industry from any time over the past 100 years, who would you pick?
I would say Federico Fellini.
Fellini, 8.5 fan, huh? Nice.
Yeah, plus he loved Italian food.
Okay, nice. So you would have Fellini over for dinner, make him some nice Italian.
Yeah, or I'd actually probably make him take me to his favorite restaurant.
Okay. Oh, I could. Since we're get him to take you where he likes to eat.
Yeah.
Very cool. What's your favorite Fellini film?
La Strada.
Okay, I still have to catch that one.
Oh, it's black and white. It is one of his first films. It is a masterpiece.
Okay, it's on my list. And how about yourself, Tony?
I mean, there's so many. First one comes to mind, I would say Oliver Stone. I don't always agree with his political stances and viewpoints. However, he is a filmmaker who has something to say, and all of his movies are meaningful and pretty incredible for the most part. So,
Oliver Stone. Any fave Oliver Stone films?
Probably JFK.
Ooh, classic. What an ensemble. I love that.
Gary Oldman. Yeah.
It's incredible. And Candy just killing it as well.
Yep. Yep.
Nice. Okay, great. All right. Well, I think that's all the time we have for today. I just want to say thank you so much for coming and hanging out with me today. That was incredible. You guys are both just great, and I can't wait to see what you end up cooking up with Buzzfliks. And I'll be watching the show when it comes out. And yeah, thank you so much again.
It was great to meet you. Thanks for spending time with us.
Absolutely.
It's been a pleasure.
All right.
Talk soon.
Take care. Bye.
Okay, that's all the time we have for today. To everyone out there watching, thank you so much for tuning in. We'll catch you next time right here on Center Stage.